So actually, if you can read between the lines, well, she's not necessarily doing that for others, for her family, for her sister Prim, for the promise that she make her, even though she says that a lot. Rather, she's doing that for an egocentric reason and for herself, for saving her own life. So it's not necessarily an internal purpose and an internal motivation and a higher level motivation, right? And a moral motivation. Rather, it could be, today I'm going to talk about the Hunger Games. Ta-da! Okay, so who have the harder mission? Is that Katniss or is that Peeta? What do I mean by mission? Let's dive into it. Who have the harder mission? Is it Katniss? Her mission was to be the last survivor for her own promise to her young sister Prim and for the well-being of her family. Or is it Peeta? His mission to make sure that Katniss will be the last survivor. His love choice. The mission is identical. The motive is quite different. Katniss for sure does not know, at least up until later in the movie or in the books, that Peeta's mission is actually the same as her and not something different entirely, as she suspects, right? That he actually do not care for her, basically, and even sell her out to the careers. The forces of both of them, both Katniss and Peeta, are internal, highly motivated forces, right? A very strong engine for action, which both of them can use, and the engine is helping others, of doing something for other people. So a man will be very surprised by his own strength and by his own powers when he will ask to do something for other people or to step up and help someone else. In those cases, we find in ourselves the strength and the huge hidden potential that is in us. When we are called for helping our friend, then we find out how far we can go with our actions. We have a clear reason and a clear purpose and a clear target, defending, protecting someone we love, and we will go far to do it. And we will do an amazing and incredible things to achieving that purpose. Some will say that actually Katniss' mission is harder because she's actually taking care and worried for herself. So actually, if you can read between the lines, well, she's not necessarily doing that for others, for her family, for her sister Prim, for the promise that she make her, even though she says that a lot. Rather, she's doing that for an egocentric reason and for herself, for saving her own life. So it's not necessarily an internal purpose and an internal motivation and a higher level motivation, right? And a moral motivation. Rather, it could be kind of a selfish, more evolutionary one of afraid, or I really just want to not die. Something quite reasonable, right? And yet we does understand throughout the story that Katniss make a promise for her sister, and her motivation to keep that promise does shown to us. And to emphasize that, we can see how she's acting when she finds Rue, the second young girl that quite remind her of her own sister, and we can see how the interaction between them, there is something different about it, and there is some element of internal and higher motivation that Katniss shown to us when she wants to keep Rue safe, and how Rue is important to her, and how far Katniss will go in order to help her and to save her. So Katniss does get a lot of powers and energy, a lot of strength for thinking, well, I have a purpose now, I have a mission, and that mission is to keep Rue safe. That purpose is some kind of an engine that keep her motivated, extract from her greatness. And yet, some will say the evolutionary will to survive that is found in each and every one of us is actually the higher engine, right? And the higher motive for this mission. Well, some will say that because Katniss is doing this mission for herself, because Katniss' mission is to keep her alive, then actually that mission is easier than Peeta's mission, because eventually she's saving herself. And Peeta, well, some will say his mission is easier because his motivation is to do it for others. So his mission is to keep Katniss safe. His mission is to make sure that Katniss will be the last survivor. And so he has very clear motivation, and it's higher one, it's a moral one, it's from within, and it's clear to him. And some will say because of that, actually his mission is quite easier. He's doing what his heart asks him to do, and he's follow his heart. And yet, we can argue because his mission and his cause does not emphasize to others does not know about it, and certainly Katniss does not know that this is his mission, and so he does not get the strength that other people get when they are doing something for others, and they can see the admirers and the thanks that the others give them, and they can see that as a strength to keep doing what they do and to keep the engine going. We can think about soldiers in war that for them the engines are the letters from the loved ones at home. Peeta does not get that because he doesn't know if people are rooting for him, and he doesn't know if people think or even people know that this is his mission. I mean, obviously, because if someone will know, the career might suspect and find out that he's actually some kind of a double agent, and they might decide to kill him, and then he will fail his mission. But I think because Katniss does not know that, then something is missing for Peeta, and that is the motivation that you get when you see your loved one shining up to you and his face lighting up when he's looked at you and is thanking you. Peeta does not get that. So because Peeta does not get that, some will say, his mission is the harder one. And we can add that Peeta's mission will cause him to, well, basically suicide or to give up his life. We already know from Katniss' situation that in each and every person there is an internal motivation to survive and to keep your life as long as you can and to fight for it. And so internal engine that motivate each living creature to survive, well, Peeta needs to fight in this engine and to depress him, which will be very hard. And that might make us think that yes, Peeta's mission is the hardest, not like Katniss. And so the interesting and great question, whose mission is harder, Katniss or Peeta? Well, at the end of the day, we already know if we watch the movie that both stays alive. There is no doubt that Katniss is shown very high intelligence and resourcefulness in her act with the poisonous fruits, high level of understanding in a social situation and the crowd, and she realized that it's better to have 2 winners than 0, and the crowd, above all, need a victor. Say, and the choice of using the poisonous fruit will not be on the table. What we think was happened then? Well, I can assume, or we should assume, that Katniss will kill Peeta in a way that answer and accomplish both the mission. Will it really happen? I think so. Katniss being the hero of the show, a character, a very beloved character and a very admired character. I think one of the reasons that we admire her so much and we love her and we're attached to her is the fact that in Katniss is the potential for aggressive and the potential for evil and for doing bad things and for breaking the rules. With that potential of aggression and with that potential of breaking the rule, Katniss, in the moment of truth, chose to stay beside and to stay in front of her loved ones and to protect them and to put her life in danger for them. I think in another universe in which the option of using the poisonous fruit was not available, Katniss was shooting Peeta and killing him. And the consequence of that act on her life, we will never know what they will be. Consider the fact that at the end of the books, they both end up as a very loving couple with her own child. And when Katniss emphasized to herself and to the reader that the reason she chose Peeta and not Gale is because in her she knows the aggressive and the potential for war is already exists, but she can see in the thing that she cannot see in Gale. Gale reciprocates for her the potential to war, but Peeta is balancing her, and Peeta is the forgiveness side, the patient side, the giver side, the side that will die for her, the side that will give his life for her, not the violence side. And that's why she chose him. That's why he complete her, make her safe, and he is good for her. And considering that, it's actually quite scary and nail-ripping to think how her life would have been developed if the choice of using the poisonous fruit wasn't available. And so the story of the Hunger Game, I think it's very deep story, full of emotions. It's full of sadness as well, and it's full of fighting spirit and standing your ground and resist the injustice that you see. So this story has got me really emotional, especially when I read Katniss' reason for choosing Peeta over Gale. I'm reading from the book. My children, who does not know they play on a graveyard. Peeta say, it will be okay. We will have each other and the book. We can make them understand in a way that will make them braver. But one day I will have to explain about the nightmares, why they come, why they will never really go away. I will tell them how I survived it. I will tell them that on bad mornings it feels impossible to take pleasure in anything because I'm afraid it could be taken away. That's when I make a list in my head of every act of goodness I've seen someone do. It's like a game, repetitive, even a little tedious after more than 20 years, but there are much worse games to play. My name is GP, and in this channel I'm talking about fantasy stories and fiction through my own point of view. And the book series The Hunger Games is one of my favorite, and if you want to hear more, then join me in my next video. Thank you for watching. Hugs and kisses.